This NBA Cup thing is one of the biggest travesties to hit the NBA since V. Stiviana released that telephone call that she recorded with Donald Sterling saying, hey, there's a lot of black people in the front row here. I don't think it's a good look for the team. As the NBA tried to sweep under the rug 30 years of Donald Sterling's blatant racism and pretend that he was a good guy and a representative of the fine standards that the NBA decided to abide by so that they can put forth this product and perpetrate what now is one of the biggest hoaxes that we've seen. The NBA Cup, and it came into light and into play in a game last night that I was sort of following from an odd standpoint. Welcome to the show, by the way. Jeff DeForrest with you on Bury Your Bookie, a pre-Thanksgiving edition of Bury Your Bookie. And we're not bailing out for the holidays because there's a lot of action. And it's not just the family and friends and stuffing your face with all kinds of Thanksgiving treats. A lot of action on the board all across the world of sports, including a Thanksgiving Day triple header in the National Football League that looks, as my good friend Al Bernstein used to say about some guy that was about to step into the ring for his pro debut against Julio Cesar Chavez. And he would say, this is a very intriguing matchup. So we do, from an odd standpoint, have some intriguing matchups coming up on Thanksgiving Day. We will be with you tomorrow. We'll have Mike Jones with us. And on Friday, again, as we try to recover from the festivities of Thanksgiving Day and get into the weekend where a lot of important rivalry games are taking place in college football. And again, is every week pivotal in the National Football League? It's getting into the late season here where the champions are defined. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at the weekend games with the professor here on Friday. Now, if you are betting these games this Thanksgiving holiday, why not head to the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting? That's BetOnline. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with real-time odds and action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL, UFC, boxing, a lot of big fights on the horizon there. Usyk and Fury are going to go at it again. Who's going to win that one? Head to the website today to see why BetOnline is America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, so this whole thing, does anybody understand? I bet if you ask Adam Silver, if you ask any of these analysts to explain to you what the parameters, the guidelines are, how the NBA Cup, which has a sponsor, Emirates is sponsoring the NBA Cup now. The Lakers won it last year. They finally lost their first Cup game, as if this was of some significance. We're seeing this all over the news, as if they had just struck a ceasefire there between Lebanon and Israel. Whoa, Lakers lose their first NBA Cup game. I'm just trying to figure out, how the hell they do it. I'm pretty good at math, having been a degenerate my entire life. We can figure out and do extrapolations on pick six pools and what exactors are going to pay if you have them 12 and a half times, if they're paying $27.80. Come up with those numbers right on the fly. So not bad with numbers, but for the life of me, I asked many analysts this, I can't figure out how you have four teams go to the semifinals of the NBA Cup in Las Vegas when you have no idea. I mean, it's not determined who those teams are going to be. And only have one game count on the regular season schedule, which, what do? Do you discount some other game? Just scratch one off the schedule? And then two of the teams end up playing an 83rd regular season game. I for the life of me, and you can call me stupid, whatever. If anybody out there in our audience knows how this works, where you're playing two extra games if you win the championship or if you're the runner-up, and somehow you are only playing 82 games in the regular season, this is a league that seriously needs to address cutting down the number of games. What is more bogus in terms of semantics than the term load management, where you're going to pay big money and maybe disappoint some little kid that's been waiting his entire life. Little 9-year-old Johnny Jones has been waiting since he was conscious that there was an NBA, waiting to see LeBron James hit his hometown, only to find out that when the Lakers, who they now have attached a premium charge to for tickets to the game, that the Lakers will not be playing LeBron James and that he's out of the lineup. So if anything, they need to reduce the number of games. So the idea that they're playing extra ones seems absolutely diametrically opposed to any direction that the league should be going in. But can you imagine this being a motivational factor? Well, this is an NBA Cup game. Now, the only way the fans know it's an NBA Cup game is because they keep drilling it into our heads. And then you have the funky-looking court if you're watching on TV, which witnessed last night's game between the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks. Bucks downtrodden early in the season. It seemed like you had a detachment factor going on with Giannis Antetokounmpo. He was becoming seemingly disengaged as his displeasure with the way things were going in Milwaukee appeared to be mounting. At least that was the rhetoric that you were getting. That was the narrative you were getting from so-called NBA insiders. There was even conversation that he might be a target or an attraction for the Miami Heat to go after, that would turn their fortunes around. A lot of speculation about his disenchantment with what's going on in Milwaukee. Of course, they have Doc Rivers as their head coach, and that's problematic to begin with. One of those guys that as soon as you bring him to a franchise, you may as well just drop fucking anchor because your playoff hopes are going right out the window, no matter how much talent the guy has on the roster. Good guy, seems to be, a very affable fellow with a good attitude and approach to life, been very successful, and had a great career in terms of the jobs he's had and the salaries he's made. But as a coach, I mean, is he the guy that's going to put you over the top? A lot of people would say no to that. So, yeah, you were looking at a team that was really bad early in the season. Damian Lillard was not playing well. It looked like they had no synchronization whatsoever. He's trying to figure out how to go ahead and kind of cut back and be the number 2 option in an offense when he's been the man for his entire career. Hasn't gone smoothly, that transition. And then on top of that, you find out right before this game, and I was looking at this game, the Heat were only laying 1.5 points in this ballgame originally. And I was looking at that and thinking, well, that's kind of a low spread. The Bucks were surging, and the Miami Heat have been so-so. So I was thinking, geez, I might take a shot with the Bucks. But then you find out just before game time, and this is where it would help to have inside information. You find out just before game time. Obviously, the Thanksgiving turkey has come out of the oven, and the dogs are ready to eat. But you find out that Giannis Antetokounmpo is not playing in this ballgame, that he's going to be out of the lineup. So now the line moves to 6, and you were, feeling very fortunate that you had this at 1.5. If you were laying that 1.5 with the Miami Heat, you would have to think that you were on your way to the window, and you were about to collect. And sure enough, the Heat go down by 14 at halftime. Lillard is lighting it up. He's hitting everything from the Coke machine. And your bet is about to go up in smoke. But did you ever take into consideration as you were losing that this is an NBA Cup game? Bombarded with this. Well, this will be the first loss for Miami this season in the quest for the Cup. I would think it would be the last thing that you would want to get involved in because you're having to play extra games. It's just the most ill-conceived thing that we've ever seen. Imagine Eric Spoelstra as the team's about to go out on the court there. They're thirsting for blood. They want to beat Milwaukee. Milwaukee and the Heat have had a little bit of a bitter playoff rivalry going. And you part with the team after giving them an impassioned speech and instructions of what to do. And you say, and don't forget, this is a cup game. Not going to be a motivational factor at all. I remember when golf was using Ken Venturi while he was alive as an analyst. And he had great respect for Ken Venturi. He had done some good things. Didn't he win a U.S. Open or something? He won some major tournaments. Ken Venturi, great golfer. And as an analyst, he was always talking about Ryder Cup points as if it was the most significant thing that could happen out there on the golf course. And you would get something along the lines of, here's Phil Mickelson. This putt will be a difference of $1 million in terms of purse money. But more importantly, it's worth 12 Ryder Cup points. And that's got to be what's on Phil's mind. And you're thinking, come on, Ken. What kind of a blowjob is that? There's no way that Phil Mickelson is going to give a shit about it. And we've since come to learn that the last thing he would have had under consideration is Ryder Cup points because he was the first guy to go to Saudi Arabia, take the money there. And then on top of that, we knew that Phil liked to gamble his brains out and no doubt had money on himself to win the tournament. So as his putt rims out and rolls by the hole, and it costs him $1 million. Can you imagine if in the post-tournament interview he got up there to go ahead and give his regards to the winner and talk about what a wonderful tournament it was? And was he going to have the first thing come out of his mouth be, "Oh yeah, man, I can't believe it. I fucking blew those Ryder Cup points." No, he's worried about the $1 million. And it's the same thing, I think, with this NBA Cup. Just an ill-conceived thing that doesn't seem to carry the weight that it should for the amount of times that we're being just beaten to death, like the clubbing of seals, with the idea that this is of some significance. So, yeah, that was a weird one. And the game last night, if you had the inside information, you would have to feel pretty comfortable. If you would bet the Heat early at 1.5, went off 6. Money line was very prohibitive in this particular ball game, as the Heat, I think, I mean, you were getting an enormous price if you took the Bucks straight up on the money line, even though it was only a 6-point margin. Nobody thought that they could win without Giannis Antetokounmpo, and yet they held on and did. Wild in the end game, as most NBA games. You have a team dominating all the way throughout. Somehow they get caught from behind at the very end of the game, inside the final minute. And then Miami had a couple of chances to go ahead and win the ball game outright or tie it and put it into overtime, and weren't able to knock down either of those 3-point shots, although the one from Tyler Hero with their second to last possession. That's one of those ones at the park that you can't believe that it didn't go down. We were talking yesterday about Danny Hurley, more crying. We were talking about the best things that we heard a couple of days ago here on the show. And Danny Hurley, wow, the crying yesterday in the Maui Classic, which has turned out to be upset city. That's might be why the dogs were barking also. But one of the great things about college basketball, you see this early in the season, and it's turned out to be just compelling action as you're watching these guys in Hawaii shirts looking like they're getting ready to break into a Don Ho song and then competing their eyeballs out. But Hurley, more crying about the officiating. And there were some concerns, too. Bruce Pearl with Auburn won its game, and still he was complaining about the officials. So this is I mean, we've always heard this about officials and how much influence they have on games. With the amount of money, though, that's being wagered and the amount of people that are involved here, I don't know. I'm not sure there's anything great that can be done about it, because basketball officiating especially is so subjective. Everybody says this about the NFL. You could probably call holding on every play, every snap, if you wanted to. And I believe there's an element of truth, and a large one at that, to the notion you could call a foul on virtually every possession, and maybe multiple times during a possession, if you were calling the game by the exact interpretation of the rules. So highly subjective, and even the winners are crying. So if you lost a couple of bets on the Maui Classic there and weren't on board with these major upsets that are taking place, including UConn losing 2 times in a row, this time as a heavy favorite, an 11-point favorite over Colorado. 2 unranked teams knocking off the number 2 team in the country. Great if you happen to be on it. Imagine the insanity of making a money line parlay on the Memphis and Colorado against UConn in this tournament. What kind of a gravy you would be walking away with today that you could put on the Thanksgiving Day table? You'd be set for the holidays if you had the balls to go Memphis, Colorado, money line. That would have been just an absolutely magical, degenerate moment. All right, a couple of things, too. We have the Thanksgiving Day games coming up. Lions kind of fluctuating a little bit, but not in crazy proportions. Cowboys and the Giants. The last look I had, that was 3.5, favoring the Cowboys. Hard to picture, as we've been talking about. Tommy DeVito, did that one game of experience convince you that he should be lucky and fortunate to have been the third-string quarterback coming out of training camp and even having a backup to the backup role? Or what was it, a springboard maybe that he just needed to shake off a little bit of ring rust, and he was going to come out there and recapture the magic that made him Tommy Cutlets last year? What we saw him being, I don't know, was that a mocking gesture by Baker Mayfield, who did the thing with Tommy Cutlets about show me the money? And we didn't see a whole lot of Tommy Cutlet's agent. I didn't recall seeing a lot of shots of him being in the stands. He was a big attraction to this very serendipitous story that we saw evolve last year with Tommy DeVito, a very improbable NFL hero and a guy that would be shining so brightly in the spotlight. But I think here, I mean, we saw if anybody thought that the Cowboys had completely thrown in the towel, as bad as they've been and as compromised as they are with Cooper Rush being their starting quarterback, they did appear to have enough desire after winning their last game to go out and make a strong showing at home against a New York Giant team that couldn't be in any more dire straits. So my inclination would be go ahead as you're reading that second portion. Well, no, you're just getting into it at that point while this game is on. It's on early in the morning. I'd go ahead and lay the 3.5 with the Cowboys. I may live to regret that, but I think the Giants are just really bad, and I don't think they're going to hang in this game. And the Cowboys may have found a little bit of a spark last week in hanging on after nearly blowing that contest and hanging on for the victory. The Miami game against Green Bay is probably the most interesting of the games because in the Cowboys-Giants game, while it may turn out to be a close contest, it figures to be contested in a dreadful fashion where who can be not as bad as the other team. I think this might be the reverse, where Green Bay playing good football, trying to distinguish itself after this victory over a dismembered 49er team. And you're looking at a Miami Dolphin team that many people were here in South Florida. Many people believe that the Dolphins may have found something. We did see evidence of that. Tua got back in the lineup. They sort of changed their ways a little bit. Instead of relying so heavily on trying to throw the ball deep, they took advantage of what Tua does well. His completion percentage is off the chart, as high as you could possibly anticipate it could be. I mean, it's Drew Brees-esque. And the Dolphins seem to be showing some signs of life. Their defense is suspect. And you would think that Green Bay will have some success against them, but offense appears to be even developing new ways. Tyreek Hill does not appear to be himself since the cops slammed him to the cement outside of Hard Rock Stadium. It was a bizarre incident when he was stopped on a traffic stop. He's pulling into the players' parking lot, and only in Miami, only in the Magic City, could the police not recognize that a guy in a $1 million vehicle that is with two other large athletic-looking people in the car could possibly be a player. They didn't take that into consideration. They figured maybe, I don't know, that he was some rich rapper or something, and they just fired him to the ground there. And I believe that that's where this wrist injury might have occurred that has compromised the season. His numbers are paltry in comparison to what he's put up in the past through this juncture of any season he's been with the Finns, and even prior to that with Kansas City. So do they have it? They've developed some new weapons. Jonnu Smith was a nice addition to the team here, tight end. He's become a major force in their offense. And Devon Achane is a hell of a running back and a threat at all times. So even though Mostert is kind of tailed off a little bit, Dolphins offense performing very efficiently, if not in the spectacular high-wire fashion that we might have anticipated before the season. So definitely in there with a shot. My lean, and there's a trend there, and I'm not sure how applicable it'll be to this one because we've been looking at early weather reports, Green Bay, and you're anticipating another ice bowl situation. But apparently it's going to be cold, as you would anticipate, but not really with any kind of precipitation. No big snowfall or rain. And that would definitely be an advantage for the Miami Dolphins, who don't fare well. There's numerology out there. They don't fare well in cold weather. The Dolphins' record overall, and maybe too much is being made of this, because, I mean, look, people were getting frostbite in the stands in that Kansas City game, and you could understand where a team that largely operates in very warm weather all throughout the winter. Lovely here today with about an 80-degree high and perfect sunshine and no humidity. So, yeah, I mean, they're used to and accustomed to ideal, pristine conditions. Now they're going to Green Bay, but it's going to be somewhere around 25 degrees at kickoff, 30 degrees maybe, and no precipitation. So the record, though, unfavorable. The Finns are 3-7 under Mike McDaniel in games played outside. Temperatures 40 degrees or lower. 4-9 with Tua Tagovailoa. And in their history, and I'm not sure that this number is outrageously one-sided as it would appear to be on the surface. Dolphins are something like 26-48 in 74 games historically that they played in cold weather circumstances, but that would mean that all of those games were played on the road, and if you were winning a third of your road games, it's a little bit of an ugly number, but I don't know that you could just look at that on the surface and say, well, geez, you know what, that's all attributable to the sub-40 temperatures. So But we'll see. If you're factoring that into the equation, I think you're probably making a mistake and using a factor that is not really something that should be held under serious consideration because the conditions are not going to be so atrocious, or at least apparently so, that it would be so compromising to the Miami Dolphins. So in there with a shot, if you're getting 3 in a hook, I would think that's a pretty good number. Take a chance with the Miami Dolphins in that game. But other than that, I'm thinking maybe Green Bay at home snaps the Dolphins' brief winning streak, sends them to 5-7, and sends them scrambling against a really light schedule in terms of having the Jets twice, the Cleveland Browns one time left of their 5 games remaining. And a loss here does not necessarily knock them completely out of the playoffs. But sense of urgency should be there. They haven't distinguished themselves by beating a good team. Green Bay would qualify in that category. Dolphins in there with a shot. Getting 3 in a hook, I'd probably take a chance with the Miami Dolphins. So they'll go out there and get killed to finish off the Thursday night card. And the other game figures to be a blowout, and yet I'm talking to some people, and they're inclined to take a chance with the points. Lions, who were crushing people, and Dan Campbell not afraid to run up the score as if point differential was going to determine who gets a ticket to the Super Bowl. But beyond that, the Chicago Bears have been a hard luck team to a large extent this year, losing games in fashions that if you were a scriptwriter, this would be thrown out as pure fantasy. If you were trying to sell any kind of documentary on the team, blocked field goals at the end of ball games. They had to go into overtime this past week after coming back from 14 down. Can't do anything with the first possession, give up a field goal, and ultimately go out the door. They're losers to the Minnesota Vikings. But, made a bold effort. Can they be within 10.5? Double-digit favorites have not fared well in the NFL and traditionally, and have not done well this year. I think they have covered only once in like 6 spots, something along those lines. There have to be more games than that, but it's not a favorable number. Yet the Lions appear to be such a juggernaut. The temptation immediately is to go ahead and lay the 10.5, but a lot of suspicion about that ball game in terms of will the Bears make it at least mildly competitive? We shall see. I do believe that Dan Campbell will devour a live turkey before the game to motivate his team. I'm just wondering if, in the interest of good taste and the public general good, the television broadcast will include that as part of their coverage of the game. Anyway, so we gave you a very wishy-washy thing here. We were trying to connect with Troy West. That didn't happen. So, unfortunately, we weren't able to get his expertise here on the program. But initially thinking Cowboys take a shot with the points with the Miami Dolphins because I believe they have a chance to win the game outright. And temptation right away would be to go ahead and lay the points with the Lions. We'll get more into it tomorrow as we set things up for you on Thanksgiving Day. For the people at Bet Online and NoFilter.net, I'm Jeff DeForrest. Thanks so much for tuning in. And on behalf of Greenlight Ventures, we want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. We will be joining you tomorrow. So until then, have a great pre-Thanksgiving celebration, and hope everybody has a happy holiday. We'll see you tomorrow on the Thanksgiving Day special edition of Bury Your Bookie.